Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll have part 3 of our series on cloistered nuns and meet a priest who teaches acting.
Mike Gallagher will talk about novelist Penny Lernoux, and we'll meet Father Paul McCarran, critic at large.
Hello, I'm Monsignor Charles Minor.
And I'm Sean Hughescamp. Welcome to this edition of Reel to Reel. Reel had the opportunity of a lifetime to set our cameras up at 4 local communities of cloistered women. And what we found dispels the myth that cloistered nuns are like women buried alive.
We discovered the sisters to be joyful, lovable, spunky, and very down to earth. Most of them make a serious effort to keep informed on world affairs, and our cameras, lights, and microphones were really foreign to nearly all of the sisters, yet they spoke to us quite freely and quite actively. Watch with us tonight as we review the 3rd segment of our series on contemplative life, as we discover, what do sisters do for fun? And do they ever get tired praying? And what is their vision of God?
If you could stand near an open window or door and listen to the sounds coming from within the Poor Clare Monastery, the Convent of Divine Love, the Visitation Monastery, or the Regina Mundi Priory, you would most likely hear the sound of harmonious voices raised in songs of joy and praise. If there is one fact that it is safe to say is universally known about cloistered men and women, it is that devotional prayer for the purpose of achieving a close union with God is the hallmark of their existence. It would not be an exaggeration to say that in numerous places throughout the entire world, there is always a contemplative sister silently worshiping the Blessed Sacrament, day and night, year after year.
Dear Father, Brother Jesus, send the power of your healing upon your people. Heal our hearts, renew our spirits, enkindle within your people the fire of your love.
But the rule of silence that enhances the atmosphere of prayer is lifted for a short period of time each day, so that the sisters can refresh their minds and bodies through physical exercise and group recreation, all for the same single-minded purpose.
Oh, you're not going to You could go to their Jule and
Board games are a popular form of relaxation for the sisters.
5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So are jigsaw puzzles. And doing creative things with their hands, like making rosary beads.
Do either of you have a rosary finished I could have for Mrs. James?
Oh,
That'd be
yes,
God.
sure. We're so happy to give you. To have one, just one finished.
Oh, that's fine. Can I have that one? Oh, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Some cloistered communities are lucky to have spacious grounds surrounding the monastery, giving the sisters a chance to take long walks and maybe even ride bicycles. These 2 sisters did get a little carried away when the producer called for action. No matter what the sisters are doing at any given time, prayer remains the center of their commitment. Do you ever get tired of prayer?
if one really gets into deeper prayer, prayer is more a delight than a burden, and so one really doesn't get tired of prayer anymore.
I don't think I ever get tired of prayer, but I get tired of the efforts and the seemingly nothingness that is happening, or that seems to be happening. Prayer in itself, I don't think I could never be tired of it.
Tired of prayer. Well, there are times when prayer is difficult, and you almost want to find some excuse to avoid it. But I wouldn't say tired of prayer. I'm very conscious that this is the lifestyle. This is what I want, and well, I want a very deep life of prayer. I wouldn't be here, obviously.
Do you ever get tired of prayer?
Oh, yes.
What do you do then?
Keep at it. That's the answer, just persevering in it, keeping at it.
Do you believe that deep prayer can exist outside of the cloister?
Most certainly. Our Holy Father, St. Francis de Sales, says that perfection is for everybody. And I know I was praying outside.
Yes. There's a lot of people out there that are contemplatives. You don't have to be in the cloister, because the cloister is your own soul. Your own person is right in within your heart. So you don't have to be in a cloistered community to be a contemplative.
Many times people outside the cloister don't feel that their prayers are worth anything, but their prayers are as valid as our prayers, and I think it's all of us together. That's how I see it.
Many of the sisters that we've spoken to have said that they believe that deep prayer can exist outside of the cloister. Mm-hmm. If you think that's true, then why is the cloister life important to you?
Because it provides the atmosphere that fosters it more continually than it would in the outside world. You yourself know all the distractions that you're involved in, and you can be a person of very deep prayer, and you perhaps are. But you also know, like getting up and going to work and back and forth. Okay, we do the same, but also within the cloistered atmosphere, there's that, it's fostered, the whole atmosphere that pertains to prayer and leads to it.
Is there a secret to deep prayer?
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It requires, like anything worth doing, it requires a great deal of effort and time. It requires love. One really has to give oneself to it.
The only secret I know is being open to the Spirit and letting Him lead.
What's the significance of silence in the contemplative lifestyle order?
In silence, we can speak to God, and in speech, we should speak of God.
For me, the silence is the deepening of being quiet so you can allow God to speak. If you are not silent, you'll never hear God speak, because God speaks in whispers.
Since your life is devoted to a closer union with God, what is your vision of God?
I think that God is pretty much unvisionable, but I probably go through small dynamics in trying to conceive of Him for myself. He might be a father type or an all-merciful, all-loving person. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, very much of a person, a closeness. I know that that He is a being, is something I can't touch, and it's so far above me, and yet He is close to me. He's within me at all times. I guess words just don't seem to answer my question to myself.
I have a very compassionate, loving vision of the Lord. Yes, there are so many instances and circumstances in which we do not and cannot understand His will for us.
Most dynamic and greatest thing that God, that we know how He looks like is in His Son, Jesus Christ. And of course, Jesus was a Jew, and I picture Him as a handsome, charismatic, different kind of person, a little taller, maybe a blonde streak in his hair, twinkle in his eye.
Could the sisters turning their back on the world for the shelter of the cloister be considered a selfish decision? Watch with us next week as we conclude our series on contemplative life.
Stay tuned. There's more to come on Reel to Reel. Coming up, Mike Gallagher talks about books, and Washington critic Paul McCarran talks about Paul McCarran.
Today, it seems like everybody wants to be a critic. In the Arts Review segment coming up, Mike Gallagher takes a look at the novelist Penny Lernoux. First, though, we want you to meet Paul McCarran. He is an actor, a teacher, and a movie critic. But most of all, he's a priest.
What is this? What is it that you're doing that's working or not working, that you say is working or is not working? What happens?
Since I've been working in the theater for about 12 years.
Not interested in those.
And a lot of people say, well, how can you do that? I mean, as a priest, don't you? And I used to jump in at that point and try and answer that question, although it really isn't asked. At this stage of the game, I say, well, don't I what? What is there to reconcile between the two worlds? I know in this particular culture, we're very comfortable with a priest, say, teaching at a university, even if what they're teaching is physics. But what specifically does physics have to do with the priesthood? Specifically, what does running the physical plant of a parish have to do with priesthood? I mean,
as head of the Fine Arts Department at Georgetown University, Jesuit Father Paul McCarran feels that your ministry is what you make it. Recently, he was asked to become the film critic for a Washington, D.C. TV station. Once a week, he reviews current films for area viewers. One of his concerns is warning viewers of elements which may offend them, although he does like to keep things in perspective.
You presume that Hamlet is going to get in trouble once he starts contemplating the murder of his stepfather, but you can't have much fun in the theater if you say, oh, they're going to be talking about murder, I must leave. That's against the fifth commandment.
McCarran's reviews are lively, candid, and sparked with a sense of humor.
Finally tonight, Metro Media 5's movie critic Paul McCarran is here to review a film that's gotten mixed notices from other critics, but Gorky Park appears to have the word-of-mouth support of the public. Here's Paul.
Thanks, Maury. Now, I know this review of Gorky Park is a bit late, but I was misled on this one. I heard some of that word of mouth. Did some people also tell you not to bother with this film? That's the poop I got. Gorky Park, blah, forget it. Wrong. Cross those people off your Christmas card list. This film is a thrilling murder mystery. However, it's fascinating not because you can't guess who the murderer is, but because you can't imagine how the guilt can be proved.
Most of McCarran's viewers don't know he's a priest. He's not trying to keep it a secret, but he wants to use his influence in a more subtle way.
What you do as a Christian or as a priest is all part of your witness. And if you take up a paintbrush or take up chalk or take up the overalls of going in and fixing the boiler when you can't afford to get somebody else in, well, that's your work at the moment. And add that to sleeping and eating and fishing and cleaning nets and walking along and talking. It's all, according to the gospel, part of our good gift, and it's all a way of sharing and celebrating the good news.
Hello, I'm Mike Gallagher. A recent headline for a front-page story in the New York Times announced that the government was putting together $7.5 billion in aid for the Continental Illinois Bank. Now, if you're at all interested in just how Continental Illinois got itself into such a pickle, and I think you should be since you're going to have to pay to get it out, then I urge you to read In Banks We Trust by Penny Lernoux. Continental Illinois' trouble came to the fore with the 1982 collapse of the Penn Square Bank. Miss Lernoux gives a detailed account of that astounding institution's incredible rise and fall. Penn Square operated from a single windowless room in another bank in an Oklahoma City shopping mall. But nonetheless, huge respectable banks, led by the likes of Chase Manhattan and Continental Illinois, poured millions of dollars into backing unsecured energy loans made by Penn Square. Other banks followed, lemming-like. In many cases, they took badly needed capital from depressed areas and threw it away for the sake of quick profits. The price paid by Continental Illinois for its cupidity and stupidity was more than $1 billion. Miss Lernoux' earlier work was The Cry of the People, a history of the clash between the Catholic Church and repressive regimes in Latin America. Cry of the People has been called by no less qualified a witness than the Argentine journalist Jacobo Timmerman the single most important contribution of the last decade to the American public's understanding of what is happening in Latin America. A common theme in both books is exploitation. It's an exploitation made possible, Miss Lernoux makes clear, only because of the cooperation, witting or unwittingly, of quite respectable people, governments, and institutions. There is, for example, the practice, also much in the news lately, of banks pouring out money to third world governments at sky-high interest rates. They know there's no chance of these loans being repaid, but they're hooked on the short-term profits thus accrued. And they have great faith, not in vain to date, that Uncle Sam will come to the rescue when the going gets tough. And they talk about welfare cheats. Still worse and far more sinister is the interrelationship involving former military and intelligence personnel, the drug traffic, and heaps of dirty money in need of laundering. It's an arrangement that is flourishing right now in South Florida, the main port of entry for drugs. Finally, Miss Lernoux gives a full account of the relationship that bound Archbishop Paul Marcinkus and bankers Roberto Calvi and Michele Sindona. Sindona is in prison now. Calvi is dead, found hanging from a bridge in London. And Archbishop Marcinkus is much less prominent in Rome than he was when he guaranteed the support of the Vatican Bank for some massive loans made by his friend Calvi's Ambrosian Bank. The disclosures that followed the collapse of the Ambrosian were highly dissatisfying. The most dissatisfying and the most ironic was the Vatican Bank had unwittingly been standing behind loans made to finance the far-flung operations of Sindona's notorious P2 Masonic Lodge, which included, by the way, the promotion of right-wing activity on the continent and in Latin America. In Banks We Trust, unlike The Cry of the People, makes for depressing reading. As terrible as were the events Miss Lernoux chronicled in the earlier book, it was filled with heroes. There are no heroes in Banks We Trust, save for an occasional whistleblower who usually pays for his integrity by losing his job. A more serious problem, I'm afraid, is that Miss Lernoux' editor has let her down to an appreciable degree. There's entirely too much repetition. I strongly recommend the book despite this flaw, but I also urge you first to read Cry of the People, and then by all means go on to In Banks We Trust. For my money, Penny Lernoux is an authentic American hero, and no praise is too high for the courage, passion, and professional skill manifested in these two immensely important books. This is Mike Gallagher for Arts Review.
Father helps to really keep me in line as far as why am I thinking about the theater and the audience, the people. Up next, we're going to travel to Washington, D.C. and visit with Father Gilbert Hartke. He's the founder and former head of Catholic University's Department of Drama. Since 1937, he has worked with stars like Jon Voight, Susan Sarandon, and Ed McMahon. In fact, he probably could have had a successful career as an actor himself, but he chose to be a priest.
He's always there to give advice, or I had several projects that I wanted him to give me advice on, and he was always more than willing to help out and to add whatever he could.
So many people just kind of drop things when they look hard, but he'll find a way to do it. You know, if there's a way to do it, he's going to find a way to do it, and he gets it done, and people appreciate that, and I appreciate that.
Father helps to really keep me in line as far as why am I thinking about the theater and the audience, the people that help all the other aspects of the theater to come together.
The man these Catholic University drama students are speaking so highly of is Father Gilbert Hartke, who founded their department in 1937 and is still a driving force in it today. Under his leadership, the drama program at Catholic University has become one of the most successful and respected in America, producing such stars as Susan Sarandon and Jon Voight. Many feel that Father Hartke and his philosophy of education are the biggest reasons for the department's success.
You better get her on track about this marriage thing before she ends up sometime next year in banana land. Look, I object to you and to your tone. Could you disappear, please?
All right, here, now wait. Let's build up to that point. And now you've had enough of this banter back and forth. So you hit that as though it were a small climax in there. What are you so and so? What is the last speech you had? You have to teach them that it's an ensemble art. That whatever they do, they may have been this big back in this high school, grammar school, or whatever, but they were just a part of a whole. And you have to make them aware of the fact of giving, and that's what they do. That giving is of primary importance in their lives as a performing artist. I wanted them to understand that they were getting from me all that could be had, and I want them in turn to give, and also remember that they were a part of a team, part of a whole, which is true.
Many of the biggest stars in Hollywood and on Broadway received their training from Father Hartke at Catholic University. He remembers what the stars were like before they were stars. For instance, Jon Voight.
I was involved very much with John in the early years of his life, and he is very outgoing from the point of view of political activities. John was a good boy.
Henry Gibson.
Henry Gibson was Jimmy Bateman, and he was a leader. He was a natural-born leader, and he was used in many, many plays while he was here, and he was a delight to be with. A very witty, charming, bright, aggressive, in the best sense of the word, boy, and a good man. Happy memories.
Susan Sarandon.
Sue was the oldest, I think, of 7 or 8 children, and was quite a family person. And she was working her way through here. Sue was happy, bright-eyed. In fact, the eyes are what made the career for her. And she was a pleasure to have around here. And I just have happy memories of what a delightful, outgoing person Sue was in those days.
And Ed McMahon.
Ed McMahon, the world's greatest salesman. In order to put himself through school, he took in laundry. He sold spoons down in the G.C. Murphy store. He was a born salesperson, and he's just born to reach out to people.
Many of Father Hartke's former students who have attained stardom return to campus from time to time to give seminars or raise money for his program. On this day, Broadway and film actress Bebe Osterwald spoke to a group of students in the Hartke Theater.
All of your congressmen, all of your senators, all of your heads of big corporations all come to people like me and say, could you help me get over some of my bad habits when I have to get up and talk? And we do. We have systems. I can teach you this in 5 minutes. I've got all the tricks. I took the course in New York, but it takes acting and to get your ideas across to somebody else. But that's direction. That's something else. He was the one who inspired me to go into the professional theater. He saw that I got the right direction here at the university. He gave me the best parts, and I was exposed to the public under very good conditions. But he was the one who did it all, and that's why I'm glad I could come back here and say thank you. That's all.
While many schools and universities across the country have excellent drama programs, something seems to set Catholic University apart. Those that have been associated with him feel strongly that that something is a someone named Father Hartke. Bill Graham now heads Catholic's drama department.
I came here in 1950, so I've been associated with him for going on for 34 years. He's a man of enormous vision and conviction, and once he sets his mind on something as a good idea, he'll pursue it with great determination and an enormous spirit of hope that he will deliver when this vision is realized. A fresh idea to the American theater. This talent will be discovered. And that conviction convinces people that it's valuable, and that's part of how it comes about.
There is little doubt in Father Hartke's mind that he could have made a decent living as an actor. He did, after all, appear in numerous silent films as a youngster growing up in Chicago, in those days an important film center. And he was a successful model as a young man. But somehow, that didn't seem as important to young Gilbert Hartke as another call he was hearing.
The important thing in my life was when I made my first communion. Something about receiving Almighty God in the Eucharist was like nothing else. I went to Mass every day of my life from the time I made my first communion.
I think the witness of his life is that for many years, numerous people in high echelons of the federal government came to him for counsel, spiritual guidance. There were students for many years who entered into the priesthood, sisterhood, brotherhood because of association with him. Every year for some 20 or 25 years, some student entered the religious order. I think that has to come out of witness.
I was very concerned with the spiritual development of the young people and knowing that that is what they will rely on when the things are good and the things are bad.
And does Father Hartke ever dream about what could have been and regret the decision not to become an actor?
Never, not one instant of regret. God uses you as an instrument the same way as he comes to you under the appearance of bread and wine. He's within you, and you're using as an instrument. No, never have.
There is such a fine line between what is reality and what is pretense.
And Father Hartke can teach drama students how to make the theater look real. But when we saw the Contemplative Sisters, we discovered that real life by itself is dramatic.
Next week, we'll have our fourth and final visit with cloistered nuns.
We'll meet Stephanie Sweeney, the 1984 National Easter Seals Child.
Father Walt Nolan joins us for Do You Know?
And we'll learn about the Beatitudes for the elderly.
Thanks for being with us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Goodbye, and God bless you.